Hello one last time on the So You Got a Cremina video series. I'm Doug.
I'm Barb.
You people who own a 1983 and newer Cremina might be feeling a little bit smug after seeing this video, because you say, well, I don't have that bogus asbestos on my machine. I don't have to worry about those crazy seals up there on the steam wand, and I don't have to worry about scale blocking that channel, and I've got a much more modern, much superior machine than that one. Well, you've got your own little batch of problems to deal with on that generation of machine. This typifies the machine, 1983 and forward, up to 2002. It pretty much looked the same. You have a half channel on this side, but the steam faucet is now fed by this tube. And you have now the face, which has the separate pilot light and switch cavities instead of the rectangular unit with a big ceramic switch. But you have certain issues that the older machines don't have. Basically, it's the same machine, but these are some things to talk about with this series of machine. First is the steam here. This is a compression nut. It's a metal-to-metal seal. It doesn't use the copper crush washer. You can't put in a Teflon. You don't use any Viton. It's metal-to-metal. So what happens here is that if this begins to leak, a person takes a 17mm wrench and tightens it, and tightens it, and tightens it, until very often this nut is extremely difficult to remove. The faucet is held in place, another 17mm nut, and a flat washer. This is not a lock washer. So installation of this piece actually is much more difficult on this series machine than it is the older series machine. It's that what you have to do is when you go to install this, well, first when you go to remove it, the first thing you have to do is loosen the holding nut, loosen the jam nut, get it a little bit loose, then work on this nut. Because if you do it the opposite way around, you can basically find yourself in a position where you are jamming this nut even further, and then you can't get it off. So assembly is that first you tighten this nut and you get it very tight, then you follow with this nut. The orientation of the faucet is the same. You have to hold it still with your hand or a tool. But this becomes an awkward situation because many times you get it set with this nut, and then when you tighten the compression nut here on the end, it turns a little bit. So you almost have to have a three-hand job here, that you have to tighten this, hold it, hold the wrench on this nut, watch this, or get a third person to make sure that that is held still. It's a more complicated installation than on the old machine. But often you also might find that this compression nut, the compression head on this, is worn because of over tightening. Very difficult piece to make here. Alright, another issue, and you can see that it has taken place on this particular machine. This is an unrestored 1992 machine, and it's this pilot light hole. Now what happens is you proceed to restore the machine. Same issue, little skip. Group issues are just the same, but you remove the steam faucet, you remove the group, then when you take this panel off with the two screws down in the bottom, the switch and the pilot light come off with the panel, and they're held in just with plastic tabs. And when you unhook the wiring under the machine, the entire wiring harness pulls out, hooked onto these switches. This leads to the the breakage, wear and breakage of these little tabs that hold in the pilot light. It's only held in by small tabs. There's a partial one. There's the one on the other side. This is what they look like when they're new. Is that they really stick out straight. There, both of them are broken on that other side. This is basically what happens is that when you take off this panel, you want to see a little more?
I want to see it's hard to see the tabs. Turn it there, right there. You can see the red
See how they're big
bump now.
flags and they stick straight out. Once they're installed and they heat after a while, they really aren't very flexible, so they do have a tendency to break. And so, as well, there was a series of machines that had a small stainless steel bezel around the light. It was very decorative, and that bezel is not available anymore. You can adapt you can put a new pilot light and still use the bezel so you can have the decoration, but it reached a point where there was no bezel. There was no decorative part, and the pilot light just sits in the hole and snaps right in there. But as I said, it's more common to have pilot light damage on this series, the newer series of machine, than it is on the old machines, just because of the way it's constructed.
Generally, if those tabs or flags break off, it causes the pilot light to be rattly.
It'll rattle. It'll wiggle in there.
It'll often still work, just be all rattly.
Right. And now that this kind of segues into another aspect, that oftentimes you'll see the pilot lights rattly and a couple of the flags are broken off. So this brings up an issue of this generation of machine that I don't see as often on the old machines, which is crazy repair jobs. The use of sealants is more prevalent on this era of machines, and I think that this just has to do with the fact that if you made a graph of machine year, and you start with 1967 and you go to the present, the number of machines sold, it basically approximates a bell curve, and the mid-1980s is the top of that curve. There's more of those than anything else. So the more of them there are, the more crazy repair jobs that you see. It's not uncommon to see this type of pilot light situation where this is stuffed in the hole. The switch, of course, as you see, it's free to move, and so the entire thing is globbled up with silicone goop in order to keep it still. Goop or sealant or any of these things never cure a problem. Really, it's much better to replace the part, to do the thing right, but you'll often see silicone goop down here on the boiler gasket. You'll see there was a period where you couldn't get the right piston seals. It's not uncommon to see Pavoni seals used with little spacers and Teflon tape, inventive repairs through this period. There's another factor for this era machine is that the feet are push-in feet. They're not, the older ones bolt in. There's a hole and these push in, and it is virtually impossible to get these feet out and reuse them. If you need to replace one foot, you're just going to have to get 4 matching new feet and put in there, because this is just, I've tried, and you can heat them, you can squeeze them, you can do whatever you want to, but to replace one foot is almost, it's impossible, just because of the way these work. Once again, I mentioned before the solid bottom plate that has some perforations in it. This one's in good condition, but you see various circumstances where there'll be rust, particularly over on this part where there's no more perforations on this era of machine. Up to 2002, everything was pretty much the same. There was a Model 96 that we frankly have never seen that model. I think there were very few of them made, and it has very specific parts. Another little issue, many of the machines in the newer machines and in this era, they have this type of cap with a vacuum breaker in it. There are three different types of vacuum valves. One uses an O-ring on the valve, and another uses an O-ring in a seat and a ball bearing, and another one actually uses a spring. That's a small service issue that sometimes is difficult to get at, depending on how this was constructed. This is a very specific cap that, as you can see, it has. This is not a deformed seal. This has an unusual seal in it that we don't have, and that you can't buy separately. You have to buy the whole cap. Another thing that happens with these caps is that this insert, it comes out just the same way. You just push on one corner of it and pops out. Okay, this insert, though, in the older caps, they get brittle. This is not available as a separate part, the insert. And the same way, this insert here comes out the same way. But if you get a look at these things, the important point on holding these things, the way they stay in, there are these little raised squares around the edge. That's what's responsible for keeping this insert in place, is these raised squares. They will wear, and over time this cap gets deformed. This insert can get deformed. And my method of repairing that, since they're brittle, I can't get the part, then I take a hot pin and raise little bumps along the edge with a hot pin. I've tried reforming these. It can't be done. You just put little bumps in with a hot pin, like little blisters, little pimples on it, and it'll snap back in. Some other things, as I said, this is positioned different. The pressure set is positioned on a short tube rather than on the long tube. I can't see that makes any difference. You can always change the tube, reform another tube with I believe it is, what is it, a 6mm cap on these?
I think so.
And that can be done, but I'm just trying to think of other issues with this era machine that are quite common. During this entire run, there was quite a bit of parts changing, a different source, a different supplier, and so there will be little periods that for some reason the rod seal clip has a tendency to rust. In some of them, they change their supplier, they change their material. These are still brass. They're not stainless steel. They're plated brass. They also plated the inside of them. And with this era, they didn't plate the older ones. They covered them with asbestos. They weren't plated inside either. These are plated inside and outside. There are times that people will say, "What are these little metal flakes?" Is that the plating on the inside, especially after you descale, the plating can come off in flakes. You don't see that with the old machines, you see them with this era machine. I think as an epilogue or an appendix to this extremely long video about rebuilding, as the old machines, pretty much the same process. 1983 forward, you have some areas that you might feel a little bit simplified, but at the same time, it is not necessarily an easier rebuild, just a slightly different rebuild. It has its own little issues, and so this is the slight update. 1983 forward rebuild issues can, as I said, be a little different, but they can be just as challenging. And there'll be one more addition to this series. You might be familiar with the period where the case had a decal on the back. not a badge. It had a decal that, you know, it was a gold decal right in the paint. And we've got a little video to show you how to apply that decal if yours has a problem.